Welcome back to AI Talks with Chris and Nita. Ready for another deep dive?
Absolutely. Always excited to explore these fascinating AI concepts.
Today we're tackling something called abductive reasoning in AI.
Sounds intriguing.
And it really is. For our listeners, imagine AI making educated guesses when it doesn't have all the pieces of the puzzle.
Like a detective working with limited clues.
Exactly. It's about reaching the most likely conclusion, not necessarily a guaranteed one.
So AI dealing with real-world situations where information isn't always perfect.
Precisely. And to help us break this down, we're diving into this document all about abductive reasoning in AI. So let's get to the core of it. What's the fundamental idea here?
Well, at its heart, abductive reasoning is about finding the best explanation for what we observe.
Okay, so making sense of things, even with limited information.
Right. It's like imagine you walk outside and see the streets all wet.
Wet street. Okay, got it.
Now, what could have caused that?
Let me see. Rain. A burst pipe. Maybe the street cleaners were just there.
Exactly. You've just listed several possible explanations.
But how does AI, or even we for that matter, pinpoint the most likely reason?
That's where additional information comes in. Let's say you check the weather forecast and it predicted rain.
That changes things.
Right. So considering the wet street and the rain forecast...
Rain seems like the most plausible culprit.
Exactly. That's abductive reasoning in action. Taking what you know and making the most likely inference. You and I, we do this kind of thinking all the time.
Without even realizing it, probably. We're like everyday detectives.
In a way, yes. But how does AI actually perform this kind of reasoning? What are the technical methods it uses?
That's what I'm curious about. It can't just be magically guessing, right?
Not magic, but clever techniques for sure. One important method is using something called probabilistic models, specifically Bayesian networks.
Bayesian networks? That sounds a bit complex.
It might sound intimidating, but think of it like this. These models help AI figure out how likely different events are. They let AI weigh the odds, considering uncertainty.
So for our wet street example,
the Bayesian network could compare the likelihood of rain versus a burst pipe, especially if, say, we also knew there were no reports of burst pipes in the area.
So it's like AI is gathering evidence and then placing its bets on the most likely explanation. What other strategies does it use?
Another approach is logic programming, using something called answer set programming, or ASP for short.
ASP. Okay, another acronym to add to our AI vocabulary.
Right. But essentially, with ASP, AI uses logical rules to find possible solutions. Imagine it generating different scenarios, different answer sets to explain the wet street.
So like trying out different stories to see which one fits the facts.
Precisely. And it picks the scenario that's most consistent with what it knows, like solving a puzzle and seeing which pieces create the most complete and logical picture.
That makes sense. And you also mentioned machine learning playing a role here.
Absolutely. Some machine learning algorithms learn to predict outcomes, and that itself can be seen as a form of abductive reasoning.
So learning from past data to make informed guesses about the future.
Exactly. Like if an AI sees enough wet streets after rain, it learns to connect those dots.
And predict a wet street if the forecast calls for rain. That's pretty cool.
It is. And this brings us to a key takeaway. AI, just like us, often has to work with incomplete information. Abductive reasoning is how it tackles real-world problems where not every fact is neatly laid out.
It's AI's way of navigating the uncertainty of the real world.
Exactly. It's constantly making these best guesses based on what it knows.
That's a really insightful point. It makes you think about how much we ourselves rely on this kind of reasoning every day.
Doesn't it? And thinking about how AI does it maybe changes how we view the technology, like we're not so different after all.
Definitely something to ponder. Big thanks to you for joining us on this deep dive into abductive reasoning.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And to everyone listening, until next time.
Keep those AI brains buzzing.